So are you excited about the house about to be finished, fully built, so you can move
I
into it?
can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. I've always seen the tiny house advertising and all of that.
Yeah.
And like even in Austin, when we drove through that little town that was all tiny homes, I was like, I don't want one, I want one. And I finally was like, I'm gonna do it. So
Yeah.
they laid the downstairs floor this morning, and they're working on the upstairs right now.
Did you ever think you would find yourself in a tiny home?
No, I would see it. I would, like, oh, that'd be nice. I never saw myself living in one, but now that I'm retired and now that I still want to keep my independence, like, I think that's a good move for me. You
Is
can do some
Brownsville
repeat.
is Brownsville where you grew up just as a child? Like you're pretty much your entire life here, or did you start somewhere else and then end up here?
No. I was born here and I was raised here, and I did live in Corpus for about 2 years,
Okay.
maybe a year and a half, but then came back to Brownsville, and I've been here ever since.
Do you remember how old you were when you were living in Corpus?
Let's see. Veronica was born in 77? I must have been in my 20s, maybe 28.
Oh, so it was as an adult.
Veronica was a baby. She was,
Okay. What prompted the move to Corpus?
her father had found a job up there, so we had to move.
Okay. And how did you like it?
I liked it, but it's kind of hard when you move somewhere that you don't know anybody, you don't have any friends, and he's gone all day and you're on your own, and it was like, I don't know. I think I was just lonely there. It was kind of, I didn't know anybody.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
So were you ever able to like make friends in the area or go out, or was it just pretty much a
Pretty
stay at
much
home
the
and take
only
care?
stay at home, and the only friends I had were the wives of the other musicians. When we would actually get together as families and special occasions, birthdays or something.
Would you ever go to any of his shows?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I would. But it's kind of hard to just sit there. I mean, yeah.
Did you like his music, or were you just kind of supportive, but secretly?
No. I actually like the music.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I remember once a friend of his actually asked him if he could dance with me, and he said yes to his friend. But when we got home, boy, was he pissed. You were supposed to say no, and blah, blah, blah. You know how it is. Hey, I don't read minds. You told him yes, so
I was following your lead.
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then decided it wasn't for you after some time.
Yeah,
Did
after
you guys
some
both
time.
move together, or was
No,
it like
no,
you guys split up?
We split up. I came back, and he stayed over there, and that's the best thing I could have done because things were just kind of going downhill after that. It's kind of a rough life being with a musician. It's kind of rough.
That's what I hear. I don't think that's changed.
No, it hasn't changed. So no,
Okay.
that was the best thing I could have done.
Okay. And how long had you guys been dating?
Oof, about 5 years maybe. Well, that we were together before we had Veronica.
And then, what was the decision like when you decided, all right, I'm going to go ahead and go on my own and raise my sister Veronica on my own, or was that, was there like any conscious thought into that, or did you just?
None whatsoever. It was an impulse move.
Mm.
There was a big to-do argument, and of course, my little brother, I called him, and he came over with a trailer and a couple of friends, loaded everything up, and
Uncle Kike?
Uncle Kike, and drove me down. So that was it. I mean, I could always depend on my little brother.
Yeah.
So I just called him and said, hey, I got to get out of here. I want to go home. And yeah, we were gone while he was at work. Came back and I wasn't there anymore.
Did he know?
Nope, he didn't know.
Okay.
And the only thing I left, and I still remember to this day, everything got packed except a brand new television console because I had just gotten it for Mother's Day.
Mm.
And I believe I wrote a little nasty note, like something akin to "screw you" on the TV, and I left it there.
Did you break it?
No,
Okay.
no, I didn't go that far. I
Uh,
just there, and that was it. Although afterwards, it was a lot of, "I'm sorry, forgive me, blah blah blah, please." No, but I stood strong. That was, like I said, the best decision I made. I've been happy ever since.
Yeah, the women in our family are stubborn and strong-willed.
I was gonna say not necessarily stubborn, but I think strong-willed, and we get that from our mom. Our mom she raised all 7 kids by herself too. I mean, she had a rough start in life, and she just hung in there, and I think it all just kind of transferred onto us, especially to me. Being
Yeah.
one of the little ones, I still end up having to help my sisters.
Well, growing up, observing the family, I definitely recall, a lot of the aunts and uncles kind of leaning on you. Like, you definitely seemed like the leader of the siblings,
Yeah.
even though you weren't the oldest. So, well, let's talk about Grandma then.
Okay.
She had a rough start. Like, describe that in your words. Like, what do you remember? Like, what are the stories that you've heard, or what has she told you? Because I know Grandma wouldn't talk about a lot of things to certain people. So,
Well, she was a very private person, very private. And she really never said things about her life or anything. I usually learned from others, like my grandmother, her mother, my grandmother's sister, Mela, used to come to the house, and Mom would hire her to iron clothes and things like that. So she was always very willing to give up information. So from her, I learned that Mom was married very young, and she already had, Mary, Rachel, Rosie, and Blanca. She had 4 kids, and they lived in Matamoros. And just so happens that her sister and her family lived in the same neighborhood. It's like a vivienda, There's different houses, and everybody, the family just kind of lives in tiny homes, if you would.
So was Grandma a U.S. citizen, or was she a Mexican citizen?
She was U.S. She was born here in San Benito.
She was born in San Benito, but then she lived in Matamoros.
Because grandma, her mom and dad lived there.
Okay, and was great-grandma, your grandma, American, or was she a Mexican citizen?
My grandma,
Do you remember?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't remember. But anyway, going back to Mom's hard life was when my siblings, through Mom, were young. Apparently, her brother-in-law killed her husband in a drunken brawl.
So she was married to a man from Matamoros.
Yes.
She lived in Matamoros with
The
my oldest aunts and uncles. So
Yeah.
Mary, Huichol, Rosie, and Blanca.
Their
They were the children of her husband. Or do you know what his name was?
Francisco.
His full name?
Francisco Medrano.
Francisco Medrano.
I want to say Luis Francisco Medrano.
Okay, so that's where the Medrano.
And actually he looked just like Huicho, but slim.
So
Huicho had a rounder face.
Yeah.
The one that has the picture is Norma on the wall of her home. She's got a picture of him.
She should make a copy and pass that on to Luis,
Yeah.
because I know Luis has a lot of questions about that.
Actually, that's a good idea.
Okay, so any insight into what started the brawl, or was there any history there, or just kind of a drunken accident?
It was a drunken brawl. I really don't have the details, but it's sad that, But then again, things happen, and
Do you know how old? Who was the youngest then? When
the
that
youngest then
happened?
would
Blanca?
have been Blanca.
Any idea how old she might have been?
But she must have been 5 or less.
Oh, that old. So
Yeah.
Mary probably remembers some of that
Yeah.
then. Okay. Do you think that's something that Mary might talk about?
I don't know. You'd have to approach
She would have been
her.
like 10.
Yeah. You'd
or
have
so.
to approach her for that. I mean, she doesn't even talk to me about it. her sister, you know. So I don't know if she would.
Did it happen at the house, or
These
somewhere?
questions I don't have
You don't know?
answers to.
Okay, but it's interesting information that I think a lot of the family doesn't know about.
No.
So
There's only one other person besides you that I've shared that with, and that was Luisito, because he outright asked me, you know, like, what do you know? Talk to me. So it's kind of good that you guys are getting into your lineage, like, you know, your genealogy,
where we came
background,
from, like the history,
yeah.
yeah, because for so long we just never knew, you know,
Yeah.
like, because I've often wondered that too, you know, why, because I only remember grandma being a single lady, like my grandma, and I always wondered, like, why is my uncle Luis Medrano, you know, like, and
Yeah.
then, you know, I have my uncle Quique, who was, you know,
Salgado.
Enrique Salgado,
Yeah.
and like, what happened there, and yeah, so, but as kids, we never really, you know, care much to really ask the question, but then as an adult,
Yeah.
you start to understand the significance of the name difference, and you know, but we've gone our whole lives without ever
Asking.
knowing or asking, and then it's kind of hard to like start asking now that we kind of understand the implication.
Yes.
So, okay, and then what about my grandfather?
My dad?
Yeah.
My
So
dad.
how did you and Katie and Uncle Kike
Okay.
come about?
Well, I'll tell you, Mom was working at a shrimping place, cannery or whatever it's called, and Dad was a shrimper. So I'm thinking maybe that was their meeting point. I never found out how, but I just remember, I mean, Mom and Dad. I don't remember how they hooked up, but I do remember the house, the two-story house on Arthur. I remember Kiki being born. He was Dad actually put a bed downstairs for Mom with Kiki. And I remember upstairs it was 4 bedrooms. So one was for Mom and Dad, and the other one was for Rosie and Mary, and then one for Huicho, and then Blanca was with me and Katie. So it was fun because we would run up those stairs and slide down on our little butts, and just, although Mom made us really clean and wax those floors. Katie loved to do waxing. She would put on the wax, and then we would buff it. So it was fun, kind of. You would buff with your feet or with your butt. So we found a way to make it fun. But there was no forgiving letting that go. It had to be done.
Yeah, I could see Grandma being pretty strict about it. What else about growing up at that? So, do you know how old you were when you were living on Arthur Street?
Well, I 15, high school. So I was gonna say like 19 because I moved out of the house. I moved out and was on my own. I had a job already. You know, in those days, school would find you a job. So I had my little efficiency apartment. It was nice.
Okay, well, before we talk about that, so I thought you guys grew up as kids on the house on Arthur Street. So
No.
where were you as
Before?
children? Like
As
as
children?
toddlers or?
Oh, as toddlers, we were somewhere on Van Buren.
Van Buren, okay.
On Van Buren, it was a small house. I was a baby, so I don't remember that much. But in the projects that were across, kind of catty corner to it, lived my Aunt Cuca, Mom's sister. And she was our babysitter, me and Katie. And the reason that I remember only this part is because one day I grabbed my bottle and Katie's bottle and actually crossed the street to go home. And Katie behind me, and it was like somebody picked us up and took us home, and it was like Mother was all freaking out when it happened. She fired the maid. Supposedly, there was also a maid, and she fired her because she wasn't really taking care of us, and she was stealing like our baptism clothes. And Dad was one who always had us with the esclava and the cadenas, and she took all of that. So it was. I tell you, Mom really had it rough because Dad. When she was with Dad, I mean, he was off shrimping for a month and a half, 2 months at a time. So she relied on housekeepers or maids, and Kuka would babysit. But other than that, I don't remember the house. We were babies. We were little. But I still remember a picture of me and Kike sitting with Dad on the steps in the backyard, but it was already the two-story house on Arthur. I was, let's see, I can remember Kike, it must have been like 2-3 years already. So when Kike was born, how old was he? Age difference.
Was he about four years younger than you or so?
He was born in 56, I was in 52, so yeah, 4 years. So that's why I don't have too many memories of the house on Van Buren, because we were little when we moved to the house.
Okay. Any thoughts or memories on Brownsville then versus now? I mean, I think now it's changed quite a bit in the last few years, but you know, you've kind of seen it grow. So you were a teenager, you had an apartment. You know, what was different then? Like, how was life in Brownsville?
I'll tell you, it was still a sleepy town, but I'm gonna go back a little bit before I even moved out, because the one thing I loved about Brownsville that I did not even know then, but I do now, is that it wasn't racist. At least in our neighborhood, there was two African American families, one right next door and another one a street away, and we didn't know, you know, that they were any different. We played tetherball with Cheryl. I still remember her name, Cheryl. We played a lot, and with the other neighbors, it was an adult couple. They didn't have any kids. They would call and we'd visit with them. She would make lemonade, things like that, and we had no idea. And nowadays, you hear about all this racial profiling and the racism and all of that, and I mean, it was never ingrained on us, so we have no racism bone in our bodies because we didn't know any better. And that was so, like, now the difference between then and now, I mean, it's sad, you know. Instead of becoming more accepting, you know, this country seems to be going.
Yeah, it definitely has its loopy cycles.
Yes.
So, you know.
Well, at least speaking about Brownsville, because I know that there was things prior, I mean, from way back, that was a conflict, right? But
Well, I mean, there's a lot of history
Yeah.
in Brownsville.
yes, there
Pretty
is.
civil and
Yeah.
everything. Do you remember any special moments growing up, like your childhood? Like anything from with your siblings, with your twin sister Katie? Like anything kind of stand out, or that you find yourself looking back on with some fond memories?
Oh, I remember the day she got married. I cried on those church doors, on the stairs, the stairwell. I cried and I cried and I cried. I was so sad.
Why were you crying?
I don't know. I mean, my twin sister, we'd always be together, you know, we were always, and I was here an adult already, right? 17, I don't remember, but I just was crying, and I still remember. And as far as when we were little, I remember I played with paper dolls. I had so many paper dolls and clothes. It had the little paper that you would fold back. That's how you put it on the doll, to dress it, you fold the paper, and the little tabs, it was little tabs, and you fold the tabs. And, oh, I had a shoebox full of clothes.
Paper clothes?
Paper clothes for my paper doll.
Would you like color them yourselves, or did they come
They
colored?
they came colored and everything.
Okay.
So I just dressed them and put the little shoes and everything. But that's what my mom could afford, and I say my mom because my dad was never around. So, but I was so happy. We didn't know we were very limited financially, but
Well, it definitely seems like a huge breakthrough, because even Arthur Street, I know that's Grandma had the only two-story house in the whole street. Did your dad or my grandfather help with some of those finances, or is that something that, you know, Grandma, you know, did the majority of the hustle on her own? Because I know one thing I remember about Grandma is she was always moving. She was always hustling.
she had to, because really, my dad was very irresponsible. I mean, seldom would he really provide financial support to mom. And I'll tell you that one thing I remember also is that when he had this other family, he was going to sell the house, the two-story house. He wanted us to move out because that was his house, and he was going to sell it or do whatever. And his children, Katie, Kike, and myself being primary, I got my brother and my sister and I said, hey, we have to buy this house, get a loan, do something. We have to come up with money and just buy the house from him, so that he could just, he wants out, he can be out. We can do this. And yeah, got loans, and we outright bought him and put the house in mom's name. Well, we put it in our name, and then we transferred it to her. So, I mean, he was a little hard ass. I mean, he was like, he had his moments. It was fun. When he came home from shrimping, I remember he was fun. He would take us shopping, and the thing is, it was only to us three, not to my other brothers or sisters. He was always, excluding them and putting them aside like they were nothing. We didn't notice that, but as we got older, you start to see things, how different it is. So, no, in a way, it was good that we kind of bought him out, because then, we were at peace.
Do you remember how much you bought it for back at that time?
I think we kind of each pitched in $2,000 and just gave him the $6,000 for it.
Was there like any official
Oh yeah, we went and documented it in the courthouse or whatever. Oh yeah.
6,000.
I mean, I was really, I've always been, I don't know what you would call it, cautious, aware or what. So no, I mean, I made sure that we did it. So I believe that was it. All he wanted was money, and okay, there it is. This is what we got here. Let's change the names, and that's why we put it in our names. It was Enrique Salgado and others, right? And then as soon as all the paperwork was done, we went and we just turned it right around and put it in mom's name, because it really was her house. So those are memories, bittersweet, some of them, because he could be a good dad. He would take us to the beach. I remember that. Take us to the beach a lot. He had this big old airplane car. I forgot what it was. And I remember once he actually pulled me and Katie by our hair, because a big wave came in, kind of knocked us down, and he just grabbed us.
Pulled you out of the water?
Yeah.
I mean,
pulled us out.
You gotta do what you gotta do sometimes.
Yeah. But no, he wasn't, as a dad, he really wasn't around much, so.
And him and Grandma were never married?
I don't think so.
Okay. What about school? What do you remember about, like, what middle school did you go to? And what high school?
Okay, well, elementary, I went to J.D. Canales. Middle school, I went to Falk Middle School, and there was a moment in time that they were redistricting the area, and they were going to move us to Cummings. And I think, I don't know if it was my dad, now that's one thing he was involved. He's the only one that would sign our report cards, because he would actually look at our report cards. And I have some of my old report cards that they're all signed by him. He actually said, no, they're going to this school because it's just a straight shot from the house and this and that. So he would be involved in things like that, I suppose. So I should give him credit for that. So we stayed there at Falk. We stayed at Falk, and from there we went to what was then Homer Hanna High School. And now it's just Hanna. Plus, it was the only school, so we had a two-shift classes, morning and afternoon. The mornings was for the 9 and 10, because the upper class would work, right? So then the 11 and 12 was for the upper class.
When you say work, you mean they actually had jobs?
They actually had jobs or whatever. So they technically didn't want to wake up early in the morning to come to school, right? So they just worked on that schedule. It was pretty cool. I liked it.
What kind of a student were you? Like, would you say you were like an academic? Did you just show up? Were you maybe into sports?
I was never into sports, and as far as school is concerned, I didn't have to try very hard. I mean, I God just gave me ability and skill and intelligence. I didn't even bring home any homework. I was always back then. They used to give us a study hall, like 45 minutes or whatever. So I would do whatever needed to be done. I didn't bring anything home. I didn't study for tests. I mean, and I was a pretty good student. I got A's and B plus. I actually graduated in the top 10%.
Maybe it skips a generation. I was a terrible student. Smart kid, I think, but I got half of my sleep at home and half my sleep at school when I would show up.
Something your mother never found out because she was always working, right?
Oh, well, I know we kind of talked about this on the 4th during the holiday. No, yeah, so just really quickly, I skipped one time, and then I learned that they would call home. And you got after me one time, so I learned the schedule that they would call. So whenever I would skip again, I would just disconnect the phone so it wouldn't ring, and then reconnect it. I think it was 5:30 and 8 o'clock were the two times that they would call.
See, those kind of smarts are the kind of smarts I had. Because I would do something like, for instance, with my dad, like I was saying, he was kind of, I would tell him that I needed to pay for my locker and pay his locker, and that each was $2, so that was $4 that I'd pocket, because of course they didn't charge you for lockers. The lady that would sometimes pick us up, I told Dad, well, she wants gas money, and he would give me $5, $10 into my pocket, so I always had money.
Nice.
I tell you, those are the kind of things that I can't be angry with you because you got that from me. I know that.
Well, I mean,
Very
I passed.
sly.
I passed. I did all right. I got my degree, and I'm doing well now. So
Yes.
it all worked out in the end. Okay, so once you got out of high school, were you working when you were still in high school, or?
Actually, I was. They would find us jobs through the what was it, the vocational class. So I was in either 11th or 12th, and I was hired at the hospital in the office.
Okay.
And it was part-time jobs, but it was a part-time job, but I already had a steady job. So that's when, after a while, maybe after a year or so, I decided I can afford to move out now. I have money, I have a job. And once I was out of school, of course, they hired me full-time. So then with that came overtime, so I learned about that. So little things like that. I worked for the hospital for a very long time. I don't remember years anymore, but I worked for them a very long time. And then after a while, I don't know what happened. I moved to another job. I honestly don't remember the sequence of my job.
Anything that you learned, from working at the hospital? Any like lessons professionally or work-wise?
Actually, when I loved working the emergency room outpatient. I could be in the daytimes. I would be in the admitting office registering patients that were going to be coming in, right? But when you work in the emergency room, I mean, it's whatever comes in, right? So I would have to go into the room sometimes and take the information. So I would learn. I saw like, okay, this is how you take care of a wound. I learned about betadine, about bandages. I mean, I learned about steri-strips. I mean, I learned.
But you weren't
a lot.
like a nurse or anything.
No.
Would you actually get hands-on with patients?
No.
Or just you
No,
just
just
got
the
to
questions,
see it?
the questions and answers. But I would see, I would learn by looking. Like I say, I didn't really have a hard time learning things, school or on the job. I really didn't. I still remember when I started working in the manufacturing business, I did not know how to use one of those computers for purchasing and all of that. And one of the young men taught me, and I said, well, wait a minute, because I don't do anything without notes. So he would tell me, and I'd pause him, and I'd write my notes the way I understood them. And then the next time I would do it on my own, following my notes. And that's how I would learn.
So did you have multiple jobs between working at the hospital and then working at Ranco, or was it maybe like an easy transition, then you were at Ranco for many
Yeah.
years?
It
Okay.
was a transition. I from the hospital, I went to Zenith. I was there a number of years. From Zenith, I went to Ranco. From Ranco to General Instrument, which was Electropartes. So from then on, it was just manufacturing jobs after the hospital.
Okay.
That's when I found out how little the hospital was paying.
I can imagine. And but you were at Ranco for the majority of your
Yes.
time, right? Okay. What was your day-to-day like there? Like, did you move up through different positions, or did you have kind of the same title?
No,
the
I
entire
moved
time?
up. I moved up because, and actually, Ranco was.
I don't remember after Ranco. In my mind memory, it was
Ranco.
Ranco, then you went back to school, and then
School.
you were a teacher.
Well, it might have been that way. I don't remember, but no, I started as a like a clerk, and then I moved into to purchasing, which was really interesting. That's where I learned a lot. Was in the purchasing position. I remember my supervisor was Rene, very patient man, chubby, güerito, but he was very nice, very patient. You know,
Juanito was an older white man.
Yes. Okay, older white man. But from purchasing, then I went on to being a scheduler, and then I was when I was finally towards my last job, I was a planner, a production planner, and in between there, I was a warehouse supervisor. So that was a different kind of learning. From being in the office doing planning, purchasing, I went out to the warehouse where I actually, dealt with the trailers, the deliveries, the orders, the stocking of the materials, and all of this.
And was that a common position for a woman to be in, or was that one where you had to learn your industry legs?
It was not a common position for women. I did have my struggles with some of the male employees that didn't like to be told what to do. Although it wasn't that bad here in the States. It was bad with my last job that was in Mexico. But I'll get to that in a bit. But this one here, they had to outgrow it because, hey, it was what it was. And I had a very supportive supervisor then, Enrique Villegas. So he would tell them, hey, she knows what has to be done and you just have to do what she says. So that's the way it was. And let's see, after warehousing, that's when I went to Matamoros, and I became a production planner. I'd never done that, but the scheduling part that I had learned kind of helped me.
Now, was that for a company in Matamoros, or were you just doing it for a different division of the same company?
No, it was a different company. This is when I got into Electropartes, which would have been on the American side. I think it was General Instrument. Okay, I forgot already. But from there, I had to really learn production line rates, how long this line could run, how fast, with how many girls on the line, and
Kind of like the assembly line where
The
they're doing
assembly
things,
line.
maybe assembling things.
I had to learn times and all of this. Like if I needed to schedule this product, okay, well, how many assembly workers do I need? Which line can produce this versus over here? Do we have enough parts? So
it was almost like an optimization of like the factory and like understanding the route and how the traffic of the product needs to flow as it gets assembled.
and at the same time, for production planning, I needed to check material availability, delivery. So it was a lot of brain work.
Yeah, no, that's almost like
lot-
an engineering job because
Yes.
you have to understand the workflow
Yes.
of like almost a living organism
Yes.
of the factory as it goes through.
Yes,
this.
because you could cause a shutdown, and you would have people sitting there doing nothing.
You don't want to wait and have people
Yeah.
not doing anything, waiting for something to come through.
No,
Oh, yeah.
I even then I got promoted to like the master planner, and I could charter planes. The boss, I mean, I had the leeway.
Is this like when you would go to Canada and to different places in Mexico?
Yes, and here with the Brownsville Airport, they already knew me. The man's name was Charlie Brown, and I would call. Could have been 2 in the morning or whatever. I would get a call, and they would tell me, "Ma'am, this seatbelt or this semiconductor or this contact or whatever is bad. The lab just rejected everything or whatnot. We need some, or we're going to shut down in 4 hours, or whatever the case was, right?" So I'd go to my computer, I see which vendor had them, and then I would charter planes to go and pick it up. And it was like just by phone. No questions. Okay, I need a charter plane. How soon can I have it? I needed to go to Springfield and pick this up, 6 boxes or whatever.
That is actually a very useful and unique skill to have. Just so you know, like that is a very marketable and sought after skill set to make sure that the production line doesn't stop.
Yeah. I think maybe that's why a lot of times I was working late. I always had to leave everything ready. I couldn't leave things.
Well, now it makes sense because I remember I used to call as a kid, to let you know that it was late and to be careful on your drive. I remember doing that, but I never really understood what you did. And now that you're describing it, like that totally makes sense why you have to go and make sure that the workflow was flowing.
Oh yes, it was a big responsibility, and I would go and walk the lines, make sure everybody was like the supervisors, the line supervisors. They were very good. I had some very good line operators, supervisors, and they would come and I'd say, okay, you know what, I just have received a call. They really want this. Tell me when's the best day you can kind of squeeze in 100 pieces or whatever, schedule this for me. And they would tell me like, well, I mean, if you give us, maybe give the people 2 hours overtime or whatever, we can do it tonight or whatever. So it was constant. Okay, the only break I would have was lunch. And yes, I would work in the afternoon. Sometimes I would put off accepting new orders and everything until, the end of the day, so that I could be just at peace, quiet, and I could see, okay, what do they want? I would check inventory, check this, that, okay. I can schedule it for this, and I would shoot it back to the client. And sometimes they'd say, oh, okay, that's great, or can you do it any sooner? And I would accept orders until, like I said, when I could work at my leisure.
And how did you like it? I mean, you were obviously there for a long time, and it seems like you knew your stuff.
Yeah. I did maquiladora work, manufacturing work for 28 years, from when I went in there just being a hospital clerk to being a master production scheduler. And I mean, they even fixed it so that we could work from home. I could actually do work at home.
And I remember you having those computers, and you let me play with one time, and I discovered, what was it, Lotus? The Lotus program, where it was almost like an early day CAD program, and I learned how to use it.
Yes.
And that's kind of what should have been one of the signs that's like, hey, you're gonna really like IT work. It took me a while to circle back to it.
Yeah.
So you were at Renko for quite a long time. Like, were you working there when I came into the picture?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think so.
I think so,
I remember
yes.
being pretty young and calling you there.
Yes.
So how did that happen? Like, how did you meet my father, and how did that whole...
Okay, well, your father was a mechanical engineer, and he worked on this, not necessarily a separate building, but a separate wing. Okay.
Oh, so he also worked with Renko.
With Renko, yes. So he would come in. They had some testing thing in the back of where I was at. So he would always walk by, and I was right there. My desk, my office was right there. So he had to walk to go to that testing center, and we just started talking, chit-chatting, and then we started dating, went to the movies, and finally, I mean, at one point, yeah, we ended up hooking up, and it was like, okay. It lasted only about 2 years, I think, so it was okay. Actually, like with your dad, it was a short 2 years, and I think this was kind of sort of, I was his rebound.
You were
I
his
was
rebound?
his rebound, because he had just broken up with Gloria, is her name, or yeah, I was going to say, but she's still alive. So they had been together for a long time, and they broke up. I don't know why. I never asked. But then 2 years later, even after I had you, it was like, you know what? I'm getting back together with her. Okay. I mean, it is what it is, right? I'm not one to beg. So I was like, okay. And I still remember one time, got a phone call from that Gloria telling me not to name my unborn son Junior or the third, because your grandfather on your father's side was Enrique. I think he was Junior. Then he had your father was the second or whatever. So you would have been the third, right? And I said, no, don't worry. I don't want anything to do with him or his name or anything.
So you never planned to do that anyway? Okay.
I said, no.
And what was that like? I guess raising a son on your own without the father being involved.
Well, I already had the experience with Veronica, and the sad thing for me that I missed out on was that I had to hire nannies for you and for her. But growing up, I mean, you did have some really good girls. Okay, I still remember Pia. She was something else. She was the sweetest little girl from San Luis somewhere, right? And she took really good care of you. And then there was one not so good, and, very, never mind. But I fired her, and then the next one that I hired was actually the sister of a coworker. She worked for me in Matamoros, in the Maquila in Ranco, and her sister Rosie. And
I remember Rosie.
She was just adorable, and she loved you all. So I was comfortable. You know, I was at a point where, okay, I can work late. She's a living. She's my friend's sister. She takes care of them, and it was pretty good. Then there was another lady before Rosie, I think. What was her name? I was about to say it, and it just left me like that. But she was an older lady, and she was very good too. She's the one that was scared. There was one time that she went outside, and some bull from the neighborhood got loose and ended up in the back patio, and she was out there doing something, and the bull just was there.
Came in.
Yeah, and she's like, ah, and she ran in and all of this. But I remember her for that, but she was also good. So I had these three really wonderful girls or ladies take care of you. And I was comfortable. You would call me that it was getting dark and this and that, but I mean, I think now you understand the pressure, and it was some pressure, but I liked my job and I loved to look good. I loved to be like in my boss's eyes, to be appreciated and recognized. So I mean, I always make sure I had that, yes. And I sacrificed my time at home for that. That's why I ended up coming home at 7 o'clock in the evenings or whatever. But I always had to make sure that everything was done and all of this. So, but yeah, they paid me really well, and I'll tell you what, I did not have a college degree, and I was getting paid really, really well. And then when it was time to just take a new direction in life, we were working in Vallehermoso at this time, and the boss then actually paid for 2 years of college for me.
Wow.
He paid 2 years of college, and then the money that I had saved,
Your savings?
my 401 or
Oh, like
whatever,
your
that
401k.
I took it out, and I paid for my last year of college. So 4 years of college, I did it in 3 years because I went summers, I went straight through, and I decided, okay, I'm going to be a teacher. That was it, you know. And my boss, are you sure that's what you want to do? And you're like, yeah, I want to be a teacher.
I mean, with your experience, you probably could have been like a VP of a different
I
manufacturing.
know, but you know what? I wanted out
You
of
were done.
Maquila.
Like,
28 years.
Yeah.
I did it for
It's a long
28
time.
years. So I was like, my brain. And the funny thing is, I started teaching, and the biggest complaint from teachers was the paperwork.
Which was a
The
breeze for
paperwork,
you.
which for me was like,
This is nothing. Yeah.
this is nothing. Oh, and we have to do this spreadsheets and this and that. And I was like, it's nothing for me. Excel, papita for me, right? I was like, okay, and I would be done right away. But I mean, I already knew Excel. I was like, they have no idea what it is out there versus here, right?
To do some actual.
So teaching was very easy for me, especially like having been a supervisor and manager and all of this. I mean, the kids, I had no problem. I really have never had serious behavior problems with them because I was very stern. Like, you're gonna do this and you're gonna do it now. Do you understand? Do you want me to call your parents? I have a phone. I'll call them right now.
I
Yes,
grew up
ma'am.
with you, so those tricks don't work on me, which later in life actually came very helpful when people tried those tactics. It's like, oh, I know what you're trying to do. You haven't met my mother.
You never met my mother, yeah. No, but it worked. And there was a few times when I actually called a parent and I said, I stopped my teaching because your child, son, daughter, whatever, actually was interrupting and doing this, doing that, and I couldn't teach. So I said, okay, I might as well call his parents and you talk to him and tell him, ay, perdón, maestra, this and that and all. Leo, hold on, Israel, here's the phone for you. Why did you do that? Your mom wants to talk to you. And that was it. I mean, I really didn't want to take any BS from them or whatnot. And once I showed it once or twice, yeah, everybody like, hey,
They knew,
call
they
your
knew
mom.
you meant business.
Yeah. So I really never had the other teachers. I mean, they were constantly security in their rooms and this and that. No, I can't say I really did. And I didn't like to send my kids to what was it called? When you misbehave?
ISS.
To ISS or anything like that, because I wanted them in the room so they could learn. Again, my competitive side was the reasoning. I want them in the room so I can teach them so they can learn so that their test scores will be good. And, right?
Yeah.
And
You are one of the highest ranked
Yes.
teachers. Is it in Texas or in Brownsville?
Actually,
or-
I am a recognized Texas teacher. I have my Texas teacher recognition. Not too many of those.
Would you say that there were any tricks that you learned, like from me or from Beto, that you took into school, or maybe vice versa? Something that you learned at school that maybe you in turn used on us as adults?
No, I think the two of you are the ones using my tricks. I think the two of you are really, really picked up on a lot of things.
I would say so. Something that I've always wondered is, as far back as I can remember, I was primarily English first, and then I picked up Spanish as like I spoke with grandma and like just growing up here and whatnot. Was that a conscious decision that you did, or did you? Is that just how it turned out because of school, or?
It was how it turned out because it was just the three of us.
Mhm.
It was me, your sister, and you, and of course, I mean, we always spoke English. And the Spanish came in like with the sitters, but then by that time, you guys were already in school, and I would have you like picked up by a daycare, and they would take you, and then, of course that was English also. And after that, it was just you were able to be on your own. So the English came, and as a matter of fact, with you, I had to go to the school because they had placed you in as a second language learner.
I remember that.
And I was like, because they said, but he never talks, he doesn't that. Leo, well, of course it's not, because he doesn't understand what you're saying. He's English speaking, he does not speak Spanish. And I mean, it was like, because really they placed you because you were very quiet, and they said, no, well then he's ESL, right? He doesn't speak English. And no, I had to go clarify that you were not English as a second language learner. So
Yeah, I would say that the school system growing up, I don't want to say it failed me, but I definitely slipped through a lot of cracks because like I don't remember ever really getting time with counselors to really talk about like paths or what I was interested in or what I could excel in. And I think that there were definitely opportunities where I could have figured things out, you know, if left to my own devices. You know, I'm going to end up shorting out half of a school for a week, you know.
yes, well, there was yes, that's true. There was two teachers that you had that I really appreciated, and one was your English teacher. What was her? Oda Bashan?
So the Bastion in middle
She
school.
she looked after you. She really, I mean, she would contact me. She would keep in communication.
I never knew that.
Yeah, but and then the man, the Odyssey of the Minds. He was a big guy.
Yeah, oh god, I don't remember his name. I remember that class. That was like an after school.
Yes, well,
extracurricular.
he really recruited you to go, and it was something that I appreciated because you had something, you know, different. That was the only thing that ever, you know, because like you said, counselors never, you know, but this man did, and I remember my having to go all the way to Port Isabel to buy some balsa wood because you all were building I don't know what.
We made a little ship powered by like lime juice or something. I don't remember exactly. It was an experiment, and it would propel the ship. And then we also did tower structures
Yeah.
where we would try and build we would try and engineer a shape that could support wood, and like we would actually crush them afterwards
Yes.
to see how many 45 plates it could take.
Yeah.
And I think mine was one of the only ones where I made it like a cylinder instead of like a building,
Uh-huh.
because I was thinking like, oh, like Roman,
Yeah,
like
the
Empire of the
columns.
Colosseum like
Uh-huh.
thing. So I was like, let's try this. It's not against the rules. And then we made it so that it fit around the bar like just perfectly, which supported like some of the most weight. We didn't win, but yeah, no, I remember like just thinking about it, and it's like, oh, how can we make this work? It was super
So
neat.
those two teachers I remember, of yours I remember those two. None of the others. I don't remember any of them but them two.
Okay. So thinking back on your life, you know, you've retired in the last couple of years. You know, you're starting to enjoy your crafts now, which is actually really nice to see you do. And I hope that you get the opportunity to, you know, really actually grow and like become, you know, one of the craft makers here in Brownsville. But when you look back on your life, you know, like how did it turn out compared to what you might have expected when you were younger? Like what's the same, what's different? You know, what are your thoughts on your trajectory?
Well, I always thought, oh, I'm not ready to retire. I'm not ready to retire. And then there was so many things happening as a worldwide. We had COVID, and there was just a lot of resignations in school. And there was a lot it was just a lot of conflict and things, even with the administration. And I was like, I've been eligible for retirement for quite a while. And actually, I'm going to be retired a full year in August. I haven't been retired a full year yet
Has it
until
not been
August.
that long yet? Wow.
No, and I've done a lot for just being a year. I mean, I've already started a little business as an entrepreneur, and I'm trying to grow that business, but no, it hasn't. It'll be a full year in August.
Don't forget your hashtags.
Hashtag. Okay, so once all of this thing started happening, I decided, okay, now's the time. I mean, school started again in, 2021. We were able to go back to school.
COVID, that'll be a whole separate video that we
Yes,
can do.
yeah.
There's a lot that
Well,
happened in COVID.
the thing is that things were different. We were behind plastic walls. The students were way up there. We had to wear masks, and I was like, you know, I can't work like this. I'm so used to being with the kids, having the after-school tutorials where I make popcorn for them and this and that, and now I couldn't even touch them, you know. Every class I had to clean the desks with disinfectants. I was like, you know, no, I think it's time now. And I was 70 years old, 69, right? Or 70, going on 70. And I said, I'll retire now. And it's been the best decision because retirement has given me a new lease on life. I was able to, because of COVID, I found something to do to keep me busy, and that was crafting, making wreaths and bows and things like that. And I said, you know what? I can do this. I can make it happen as a business. And now I am retired officially, but I have started this new business, and whenever I want to work, I look for a place to go, show my craft, sell, or just meet new people. So it's totally different. I'm enjoying my retirement. It's very relaxing. I can move freely.
When they're not building a tiny home.
Well, and that's part of my retirement. It wasn't in the plans, but
Yeah.
I'm going to be moving to my own little tiny home.
We'll film it when
next
it's
to my
done.
work, next to my work shed.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I'll just see where this goes. I plan on growing it, hopefully.
And would you say that you and Beto are really kind of co-doing it, or would you say that it's more your thing? Or because I know it's called, what's it called?
It's me and Bee's Creations, and it started out with both of us, but then she has, now they're working, it's like regular back to work, after school and all of this, so now it's mostly me. And then, of course, now that she's married, she has plans with her husband. So once in a while, she does create her jewelry, earrings and bracelets and things like that.
Did she make those?
No, not these. But once in a while, she will accompany me, and she's the V part of the business. So she'll go and sell. Sometimes she does better than I do in sales because people are interested in jewelry more than in wreaths. So
I will tell you that neighborhood that I'm staying at right now, I saw some wreaths on some of the houses, and they were like, not that great. That might be actually the ideal market that you can go to if you're going to be in Brownsville, because,
Yes.
like I said, to sell them at the prices that are, really going to make you a profit, you have to come up to Austin, to
Yes.
Dallas, to San Antonio.
I know. I've learned that so far. I mean, here they kind of, but over there, no question. Just, do you take a credit card? Do you take Cash App? Not why? Oh, that's too expensive. None of that.
Well, I mean, with Brownsville, it's definitely a very, I don't want to call it like a labor-intensive city, but it's very blue-collar, and once you get a little, like, past the barrier of desert between Brownsville and I guess Corpus, there's a lot more service-oriented, because so people are able to, or more willing or used to spending their money on things like that. All right. Well,
I think they're working on the stairs. That's
Yeah.
why all that drilling. 'cause
they're putting the stairs to your second floor of your
Yes.
tiny home. All right, Mom. Well, I think we're at a good stopping point then, because I know we have several things that we need to get to later. So
Yes.